David Trumpson, a 72-year-old retired engineer, lives quietly by the coast of La Jolla. After the passing of his wife, Caroline Monroe, he devotes his time and savings to fulfill her final wish, to build the dream house she once sketched in her notebook. That house becomes more than just a home. It's a symbol of love, memory, and legacy. But one day, Damian Carter Jr., his arrogant and greedy son-in-law, announces that he and his friends will borrow the house for a few weeks, treating it like their personal resort. David doesn't get angry. He stays calm, quietly preparing a plan. He contacts Leo Henderson, his trusted property manager, and Evelyn Reedman, his longtime lawyer. Together, they arrange to legally lease the house to the Tanagawa family, a polite, well-educated Japanese-American family who deeply respect the space. Meanwhile, Damian and his friends turn the sacred house into a party zone. They play loud music, break things, and even shatter the ceramic sculpture Caroline made by hand. That was the final straw. David doesn't shout or fight. Instead, he cuts the hot water, disables the Wi-Fi, and locks the sound system, turning their vacation into chaos. A few days later, the Tanagawa family arrives. Leo presents the official lease. Damian explodes in anger, accusing David of betrayal. But Evelyn steps in, holding documents that prove the property belongs to the Caroline Monroe Family Trust, and that Olivia Trumpson, David's daughter, had already signed away her inheritance years ago. Defeated, Damian is escorted out by security guard Jack Reynolds. When peace returns, Olivia breaks down in tears and apologizes to her father. David stands by the window, watching the sunset over the sea, the golden light dancing across the waves, like Caroline's smile reborn in memory. He whispers softly, "Finally, the house is at peace."
The last promise I made to my wife, Carol Jolie, before she passed away, was that I would build her a dream home by the ocean. For 2 years after her death, I poured everything I had into that project. Every breath, every saved dollar, every quiet evening that felt too long without her. The result was a $3 million house perched on the cliffs of La Jolla, facing the restless Pacific. But to me, it wasn't a property. No, it was a cathedral to our shared life, a sanctuary of memory. And the moment my son-in-law, David Trump, heard that I had finally moved in, he called. His voice was full of entitlement, a man convinced that the world itself was a convenience built for him. He wasn't calling to say hello. He was calling to announce his invasion. "Listen up, old man, and listen carefully," he said without a trace of greeting. "We're coming over, 20 of us. You'd better get the guest rooms, towels, and food ready. We're staying 3 weeks." I didn't answer right away. My fingers tightened around the armrest of my chair. 20 people, 3 weeks. That wasn't a visit. That was occupation. He wasn't done. "We'll be there in 50 minutes. Hurry up, old man." He loved those 2 words, old man, said with that blend of mockery and superiority that only youth and arrogance can perfect. I looked around the living room, bathed in the amber light of late afternoon. The grand piano Carol used to play still sat in the corner, the last sheet music still open, the armchair where she used to read by the window, the painting of a stormy sea she'd bought on our anniversary. Every piece of the house was a chapter of us. And now David, the man who married my daughter Olivia Hadid, was planning to turn this place into a backdrop for his content. I didn't feel anger, not yet. What I felt was something colder, the clarity that precedes a calculation. The same calm I used to have on construction sites when I spotted a structural flaw. You don't yell at the flaw, you correct it before the building collapses. "David," I said finally, voice calm and level, "are you sure that's a good idea?" "Of course it is," he replied. "It's family, isn't it? You don't plan to rot in that mansion all alone. We're bringing life to the place." He wasn't wrong. There would be life, just not the kind he imagined. "All right then, David," I said quietly. "Come ahead. I'll be ready." He hung up, probably pleased with himself. I remained seated, the quiet pressing in around me like the tide returning to shore. To David, this house was a status symbol. Square footage, a price tag. He didn't see the way I'd worked with the architect to angle Carol's bedroom windows perfectly toward the sunrise. He didn't know how many nights I'd spent planting white roses and lavender in the back garden because those were her favorites. To him, I wasn't a father-in-law. I was the caretaker of his weekend retreat. For a moment, I pitied Olivia. My daughter was kind-hearted, but far too soft for a man like David. She'd go along with whatever he decided, just to avoid confrontation. But love, real love, does not mean surrender. Carol taught me that, and David had just stepped across a line etched in stone. The old engineer in me began sketching a new blueprint, one built not of concrete, but of consequences. I stood, my joints cracking in rhythm with my thoughts. No panic, no haste. I walked to my desk and picked up the phone. Not to call Olivia, not to call a lawyer. I called Leo Clooney, my property manager, a man who understood precision and discretion. The phone rang once before his professional tone answered. Leo Management. This is Mr. Clooney speaking. Good evening, Leo, I said. I have a special booking. High-profile guests require complete privacy. They'll be staying for 3 weeks, starting tomorrow morning. There was a brief pause. Tomorrow, that's short notice, but possible. My records show you're expecting family. Mr. Gates. Leo always did his homework. That's why I trusted him. His company handled logistics, like a surgeon, quietly, efficiently, leaving no scars. Plans have changed, I said. The guests require 24-hour security, licensed and insured. No one enters the property except those listed on the contract, not even relatives. Is that clear? Perfectly, sir, he replied. We can have the security team stationed before sunrise. All terms will be enforced as written. Good, I said. You'll have the names and details within the hour. I want everything signed and sealed by 8 a.m. sharp. Consider it done, Mr. Gates. I hung up. The first move was made. This wasn't revenge. It was prevention, the execution of a contingency plan I had discussed with my attorney months ago, a legal firewall to protect Carol's memory from the creeping ambition of men like David. I opened my laptop, typed out the email to Leo, and attached the necessary documents. No rush, no satisfaction, just precision, the kind that holds when storms hit. David thought he was coming for a party. He didn't know he was walking straight into a lesson in boundaries, engineered down to the millimeter. After the call, I glanced at the clock. 50 minutes, David's countdown. Storm incoming. But storms don't scare builders, they test our work. I moved, with the slow precision of someone who spent a lifetime solving problems that collapse if rushed. I wasn't panicking, I was fortifying. The first stop was the fireplace mantel, the heart of the house. Lined across it were silver-framed photographs, our entire history sealed in glass. I picked up the first one, a black-and-white wedding photo. Carol was laughing, head tilted back, eyes bright like morning sun on still water. I could almost hear her voice again. You're stuck with me now. Edward Gates, she had whispered that day. Stuck forever, I'd answered, and I wouldn't change a thing. The memory warmed me, even as my hands worked cold and steady. I pulled out rolls of bubble wrap. Old moving boxes, the kind that had been stored since Carol's passing. Each photograph went in carefully. Our honeymoon in Kyoto, the first blueprint I'd ever drawn for her art studio. The garden we planted the year Olivia was born. This wasn't packing for departure. This was preservation before intrusion. Next came the library, Carol's favorite room. Shelves of first editions, travel journals, her own notes tucked into margins like tiny breaths left behind. I gathered the rarest ones, the volumes she'd read aloud when we still had the time, and slid them into a hidden compartment behind the lower shelves. The mechanism clicked shut softly, a sound only I could hear. From the cabinet, I took out a small brass key. It belonged to the steel vault built beneath the staircase, my private archive. Inside were blueprints, deeds, the trusts, legal documents, and a stack of letters Carol had written to me over 40 years of marriage. I placed the wrapped photographs and her sketchbook inside, locked the vault, and whispered not to her, but to the house itself. Greater than you, keep her safe. That's what you were built for. The house didn't answer, but I swear the light shifted. For a moment, the air held that same faint scent of lavender she loved. I went to the hallway mirror, her mirror. The brass frame still bore a small chip from when Olivia was 10, and slammed the door too hard. My reflection looked back, a man lined with time, but not broken by it. Behind me, the glass caught the empty hallway, quiet, waiting, loyal. Then, headlights cut across the garden. A sleek black SUV pulled up the driveway. Leo Clooney's team, punctual as always. The doorbell rang once. I opened it to find two men in matching suits and earpieces, their posture military but polite. One of them handed me a folder. Greater than Mr. Clooney sends his regards. Security protocols are inside. Cameras are live. Perimeter sensors active. Only listed guests will be allowed past the gate. Excellent, I said. Install a temporary lock system on the north entrance to the side gate. Tends to attract curiosity. He nodded. Already done, sir. I signed the papers and glanced at the time. David's 50 minutes were almost up. That the timing was perfect. Greater than if anyone arrives claiming to be family. I said, tell them to contact the property manager. The contract supersedes all personal arrangements. The agent gave a small nod. No surprise, no question, just duty. That's why I liked Leo's people. They didn't need to understand the story. They only needed to execute it flawlessly. When they left, I walked back through the living room. Thought the space was quieter now, stripped of frames, sealed of memories, ready for what was coming. Through the glass wall, the ocean stretched out infinite and merciless. The same way it had looked the night Carol told me she was sick. That night, she'd said, greater than don't let them turn our home into a trophy. Ed, promise me. I promise, I'd said, and I meant it, every syllable forged in iron. Now, the promise was due for reinforcement, and if David wanted a spectacle, then he would have won, just not the kind that ended well for him. Outside, thunder rolled far over the water, the first tremor of the storm. Inside, I turned off the lights one by one, until the house was nothing but shadows and memory. The sanctuary was sealed, the steel vault was locked, and Edward Gates, the man everyone thought had retired from building, had just laid the foundation for a different kind of structure, a lesson. By the time the first light broke over the Pacific, the air had turned heavy and gray, the kind that makes the ocean look like molten steel. I stood by the tall window in my study, coffee in hand, watching the narrow road that wound its way up to the house. The property sat high on the cliffs of Gatefield Hill, 3 acres of glass, wood, and concrete surrounded by stone walls. For years, this view had been my only companion. This morning, it was about to become my battlefield. At 8:03 a.m., a distant glimmer of headlights cut through the fog. Then, another, and another. A convoy, 3 black SUVs, 1 white convertible, and a van hauling what looked suspiciously like sound equipment. I didn't need binoculars to know who it was. David Trump had arrived. I didn't move. I simply set the coffee cup down and glanced at the security monitors mounted on the wall beside the desk. Leo Clooney's team had finished installing the cameras and perimeter sensors late last night. Every corner of the estate was visible on that screen. The gates, the drive, the garden, the entrance hall. I had designed the house to be open, transparent. Now, it was a fortress. The first SUV rolled to a stop at the gate. 2 guards stood ready, dressed in dark suits and earpieces, their expressions unreadable. The driver rolled down the window. Through the microphone feed, I heard David's voice, sharp, impatient, every syllable soaked in arrogance. "This is my father-in-law's property," he said. "Open the gate." The guard didn't even blink. "Access restricted, sir. Entry limited to guests listed on the contract." There was a pause. Then David laughed. That short, confident laugh that always came before he got what he wanted. "You've got to be kidding me," he said. "I'm family. Edward Gates is my wife's father. You know who I am." "Yes, sir," the guard replied evenly. "You are not on the authorized list." The laughter stopped. Through the monitor, I saw the shift confusion first, then irritation. David climbed out of the SUV, slamming the door behind him. He was wearing a light gray jacket, designer sunglasses, his hair perfectly styled despite the sea wind. He looked like a man stepping onto a stage, not a driveway. Olivia Hadid, my daughter, followed quietly, her expression pale with worry. She touched his arm, whispered something I couldn't hear. He brushed her off gently, then pointed toward the house, his voice rising. "Dad, what's going on? There must be some kind of mistake." I leaned closer to the intercom on my desk and pressed the button. "There's no mistake, David," I said, my voice calm, amplified through the gate speakers. "This house belongs to the trust, and the trust doesn't allow unlisted guests." He laughed again, but it sounded forced this time. "Oh, come on, Edward. You can't be serious. We talked about this. It's family. We just wanted to stay a few weeks." "This isn't a vacation home," I said. "It's a memorial, and memorials are meant to be respected, not rented." "You've lost it, old man." His voice cracked across the speakers like a whip. "You really think some legal paperwork is going to stop me from visiting my own family?" "It already has," I said, and released the button. For a long moment, there was silence. Even the ocean seemed to hold its breath. Then I saw David pull out his phone, pacing in front of the gate. He was barking orders at someone, probably his assistant, or one of the videographers who followed him everywhere. The rest of his entourage lingered behind, uncertain, their laughter fading into awkward quiet. They had come expecting champagne and sunsets. Instead, they were facing a man they didn't understand, and a gate that would not open. Olivia looked up toward the house. Even from this distance, I could see her eyes searching for mine. When she found me in the window, she lifted her hand slightly, as if asking for permission to speak. I didn't move. I only watched. David turned back toward the cameras, his face tightening with anger. "You want to play this game? Fine, keep your damn gate. We'll find somewhere else. But don't expect us to come back." He waved his arm, and the drivers began reversing the cars one by one. The engines growled, tires scattering gravel across the driveway. Within minutes, the convoy turned down the hill. Swallowed by the morning fog, I watched until the last taillight disappeared. The garden fell still again, except for the faint rustle of lavender in the wind. When I finally exhaled, the sound came out more like a sigh than a breath. Victory was supposed to feel satisfying. It didn't. It felt like a crack forming in the foundation of something I'd spent my life trying to protect. On the monitor, I saw Olivia's car slow halfway down the hill. She stepped out, turned back toward the house, and stood there for a long, silent minute. Even from this distance, I could feel her torn between two loyalties, the man she married and the father who raised her. Then she got back in the car and drove away. I wanted to call her, to tell her that this wasn't about revenge or control, that I was only trying to keep my promise to her mother. But I knew what it would sound like to her. Walls, rules, distance. So I stayed silent instead. I turned to the house, to the empty rooms that still echoed with Carol Jolie's laughter, and spoke softly, just loud enough for the sea to hear. "I kept my promise, Carol, but I may have lost our daughter in the process." The waves crashed against the cliffs below, slow and distant, like the beating of a tired heart. And that was when I understood something I'd ignored for years. Lessons, the real ones, are never painless. The day after the confrontation, the house felt heavier than usual. The air itself seemed to carry the echo of what had happened, the sound of engines fading into the fog, the unspoken words between a father and his daughter. I woke before sunrise, made coffee, and sat by the kitchen window, watching the mist crawl down the cliffs like a slow-moving tide. At exactly 9, the doorbell rang. Not the sharp tone of impatience, but a single, deliberate chime. I already knew who it was. When I opened the door, two familiar figures stood on the porch, Leo Clooney and Evelyn Theron. Leo, immaculate as always, wore a navy suit and carried a leather portfolio under one arm. Evelyn, in a charcoal blazer and pale grey blouse, had that same expression she always did, professional, unshakable, and unreadable. The kind of woman who could draft a legal motion in a hurricane without smudging her lipstick. "Mr. Gates," Leo greeted, his tone polite but edged with concern. "I assume you know why we're here." I stepped aside, motioning for them to enter. "I do, come in." They walked into the living room. Evelyn stopped near the window, her eyes tracing the horizon for a moment before she spoke. "We received a call from David Trump's legal representative this morning," she said. "He's filing a notice of objection regarding restricted access to the Gatefield property." I set the coffee tray down on the table and sat. "Objection to what, exactly?" "To being denied entry," she replied. "He claims that as your son-in-law and a potential beneficiary of the trust, he was unlawfully prevented from accessing a property in which his wife has vested interest." I almost laughed, but it came out more as a sigh. He doesn't understand the difference between entitlement and ownership. Olivia is a future beneficiary. The trust is not his playground. Evelyn's tone remained steady. "Be that as it may, Mr. Trump has engaged counsel. They're requesting a meeting within the next 48 hours to discuss possible mediation." Leo interjected gently. "Edward, we should handle this delicately. Litigation will only drag your daughter into the middle of it." I leaned back in my chair. "That's the point I'm trying to avoid." Evelyn opened her folder and laid out a document. It was the trust agreement, thick with clauses and signatures. She tapped one page with her pen. "This section 5.2 specifically outlines the use restrictions. You are entirely within your rights to enforce them. However," she paused, meeting my eyes, "it might not matter in the court of public opinion," meaning, meaning that David Trump has over 2 million followers, she said plainly. If he decides to make this a spectacle, a story about a controlling father-in-law and a daughter cut off from her family, the damage won't be legal. It'll be I stared at her for a long moment. You think I care about reputation? Leo spoke quietly. I think you care about Olivia. That silenced the room. Outside, a seagull cried somewhere over the cliffs. The sound lingered like an unanswered question. Evelyn closed the folder, her voice softening slightly. Edward, you did what you thought was right. You protected Carol's memory. No one can fault that. But protecting something too tightly can turn into isolation. She wasn't accusing me, not exactly, but the truth in her words cut deeper than any argument could. I built this house for my wife, I said slowly. I promised her it would never be exploited, never turned into a stage. I'm not about to break that promise because a man like David thinks content is more sacred than silence. Evelyn nodded once. Then you stand by your decision. Just be prepared for what follows. Leo reached into his briefcase and handed me a smaller envelope. From me, personally, he said, an alternative solution. It's a list of short-term tenants who meet your privacy requirements. Artists, researchers, quiet families. Renting to one of them under the trust could strengthen your case. Prove that the property is being used responsibly. I took the envelope but didn't open it. You always think 2 steps ahead, Leo. That's my job, he said with a faint smile. And maybe yours too. They stayed a while longer, reviewing documents and logistics. When they left, the silence that followed felt different from before. Not empty, but waiting. The kind of silence that lives right before a storm. That as I watched their car disappear down the road, I caught my reflection in the window. A tired man, coffee cup in hand, surrounded by walls that were both shelter and prison. Somewhere in the distance, the ocean was still roaring, and in that sound, I heard Carol's voice again, not soft this time, but firm, like a reminder. Promises aren't just built, Edward, they're maintained. I looked around the house, the one I'd built for her, and wondered how long a promise could stand before it started to feel like a cage. The fog did not lift until late morning. It burned off the cliffs in slow, silvery sheets, and by noon the sun had returned, throwing bright bands of light across the living room floor. I spent the hours, after Leo and Evelyn left, walking the perimeter on foot, checking what did not need checking. The gates held, the sensors hummed. The house stood as it was designed to stand. At 1:15 p.m., a black sedan approached the gate at an unhurried speed. No convoy, no blasting music, just a single car and a quiet family. I watched on the monitor as the driver window lowered. A man in his 40s leaned toward the intercom, his posture precise, his voice low and unassuming. Good afternoon, we are the Tanaka family. We have an appointment, a short-term lease for the residence at Gatefield Hill. The guard at the gate checked the clipboard, then the device in his hand. Yes sir, welcome. Please drive up. Park by the front steps. The gates opened. The sedan rolled forward as if unsure it deserved to enter. I stepped away from the monitor and went to the door. When I opened it, the family was already out of the car, standing together in that careful way some families do. Like a small constellation, Mr. Tanaka wore a white shirt and linen trousers. His wife wore a simple sundress, pale blue. The children, a boy and a girl, stood close but not clinging, each holding a small backpack. Their faces were composed and curious. Behind them, a second car pulled in. Leo stepped out in his navy suit, carrying a portfolio and a set of keys. Mr. Gates, he said, with a nod that was business but not cold. May I introduce Mr. and Mrs. Tanaka? I extended my hand to the father. His grip was firm without being forceful. Welcome, I said. Please, come in. They removed their shoes without being asked. It was the first relief I had felt in days. We began the tour the same way I always had with contractors and inspectors, though never with tenants. The entry hall, the living room facing the sea, the kitchen where the marble island caught the light. The boy looked at the piano with the canvas cover and did not touch it. The girl paused at the bookshelf and read the titles with the faintest smile, then moved on. Leo kept pace a few steps behind, opening doors, noting details on a checklist, securing what needed securing. There was a rhythm in his motion that calmed the house. In the kitchen, Mrs. Tanaka placed a palm lightly on the counter. It is very peaceful here, she said. It is meant to be, I replied. We went upstairs. The master bedroom was as spare as I had left it after packing away the quilt. The windows framed the ocean like a painting. The air moved slowly in the room, like breath. "There are house rules," I said. When we had returned to the kitchen table, "I will go over them once, and then I will put them in writing." Mr. Tanaka nodded. "We read the agreement. We respect your home. Thank you. No large gatherings, no broadcasting, filming, or live streaming on the premises. No visitors not on the contract. Quiet hours begin at 10. Some areas are off limits. The study, the vault, the basement mechanicals. If anything breaks, you call Leo. If anything worries you, you call me." The boy spoke for the first time, his voice careful. "Is the piano off limits too?" "It is resting," I said. "It belonged to my wife." He bowed his head, a small motion of understanding. "I will not touch it." Mrs. Tanaka looked up from the printed packet Leo had placed on the table. "You built this house for her," she said, not as a question. "I did." She set the packet down. "We will treat it as a place where someone is loved." The words settled in the room and made a kind of order. Leo slid a small tray across the table. "Keys, gate fobs, a list of emergency contacts. Security patrol will be visible but discreet," he said. "2 guards on rotation, 24 hours. Cameras cover all external approaches and common areas at entry points only. No interior surveillance beyond those thresholds, as per the trust rules and your privacy." Mr. Tanaka signed the remaining documents with a measured hand. Leo countersigned, date and time. It felt less like a transaction and more like placing a weight on the correct shelf. We finished the walkthrough with the practical things. Where to find the spare bulbs, how to reset the breaker for the induction stove, the peculiar habit of the upstairs window latch when the wind came hard from the west. The boy asked about the trick to the espresso machine. I told him it sometimes insisted on a disc-scale cycle at inconvenient moments. He smiled like a boy who had patience at the threshold. The family paused. The children carried their small backpacks down the hall without running. Mrs. Tanaka looked toward the sea and closed her eyes for a moment, the way a person does when they are setting something inside in its place. "Mr. Gates," Mr. Tanaka said, "if there is anything we can do to help you, you will tell us." I considered the question longer than courtesy required. "If you notice anything unusual on the road or near the gate, please inform security at once. There may be visitors who do not understand the terms of this house. We will be vigilant," he said. After they were settled and Leo had given the guards their updated briefing, he returned to the kitchen with the empty tray and the look of a man who has completed a task, but not a problem. "They are exactly the tenants you hoped for," he said. "Quiet, careful, private." "Yes," I said. "Thank you." He studied my face for a moment. "You were thinking about Olivia. I am thinking about the line between protection and exile." Leo did not offer an answer. He put the tray in his bag and straightened his tie. "I will check in with you tomorrow. If anything escalates, call me first." He left by the front door, the guard holding it for him. The house received the quiet again without effort. In the late afternoon, I took my tea out to the patio. The lavender in the garden had gone from purple to gray as the wind came up. The ocean changed color, as it always did, from blue to steel to something in between. I thought of Carol sitting in this same chair, reading the Frost poem she had tucked the note into. "Thank you for taking the road less traveled. It has made all the difference." The first sign that the road ahead would not be quiet came at 5:42 p.m. A small phone vibration on the patio table. A text from the guard at the gate. Unfamiliar vehicles slowing at the turn. 3 cars. 1 truck. No plates visible from this angle. Holding position across the road. I typed a single line. "Observe only. Do not engage unless they approach the gate." A second message arrived 2 minutes later. The vehicles had moved on. Maybe nothing. Maybe reconnaissance. Maybe a test. I returned the phone to the table and listened. Far down the cliffs, the waves hit the rocks in a long, even pulse. Inside, the house kept its silence. The piano under its cover did not speak. The photos in the vault kept their faces at 6. There was a soft knock at the kitchen door. I turned to find the Tanaka children standing there, the boy holding a small plate. "We made rice," he said, careful but proud. "There is more than we need. Would you like some?" For a moment, I could not answer. I was a man who had designed concrete to hold back a hurricane and yet could be undone by a plate of warm rice. "Yes," I said. "I would like that very much." They placed the plate on the counter and bowed, not ceremonially but sincerely. When they left, the kitchen did not feel empty. It felt inhabited in the right way. the way a house is meant to be. I ate standing up, the spoon in my hand heavier than it should have been. When I finished, I washed the dish, dried it, and set it on the rack. I did not think of the last Christmas before Carol fell ill. I did not think of my daughter as a little girl holding a wooden spoon and waiting for the steam to rise. I simply stood for a while and let the room be the room. Just after 9, the guards cycled. The night detail took their places. Lights along the path clicked on one by one. Not bright, just enough to draw a line round the darkness. In the study, I checked the monitors, the gate, the drive, the road that curved out of sight. The feed flickered once as a cloud passed over the moon and then steadied. I closed the door of the study and went to the living room. On the glass, the reflection of the room floated over the ocean like another version of the house. I saw a man standing there who looked like me. He was older than he remembered. He was not afraid. He was tired in a way that did not go away with sleep. I spoke aloud, because there are times when you must hear the truth in your own voice. Carol, I am holding the line you asked me to hold. If I have to stand here alone to do it, I will. The wind came up and pressed against the glass. Somewhere below, between rocks and tide, the sea answered in its old language. At 9:27 p.m., the phone lit again. A message from Leo, short, to the point. Heads up. David is posting. He is framing this as a family dispute. We may see more cars on the road. I typed back. Understood. The gate holds. Then I turned the phone face down. Because there are wars you do not fight with your eyes. In the morning, I would walk the garden. I would check the latches. I would make tea. I would keep the promise. For tonight, I watched the dark gather and the house hold its shape. The road below remained quiet. The sensors did not sound. The Tanaka children turned off their light at 10 on the dot, and the house, at last, slept. Morning came grey and windless. The ocean below Gatefield Hill had lost its rhythm, the tide dragging without sound, the air thick as unspoken words. I woke before sunrise and knew, even before checking the phone, that the world beyond the gate had already changed. Leo's message from the night before was brief, but the implication had been clear. David Trump had started talking, or rather, posting, and in his world, talking meant broadcasting. I made tea, sat at the long kitchen table, and opened the tablet. I did not have to search far. The first notification blinked on the screen like a warning light. A video. Title: When Family Turns Against You. Thumbnail: David, standing by a foggy road, the house visible in the distance, his arm around Olivia. The footage was shot with professional clarity. Of course it was. David's crew always filmed in 4K. His expression was the perfect mix of wounded pride and sincerity. He spoke to the camera like it was a friend. My wife and I came here to spend time with family, he said, to reconnect, but we were denied entry by her own father, for reasons that make no sense. Cut to Olivia, silent beside him, eyes cast down. Then to a slow pan of the gate, the guards, the coastline. Music swelled, minor keys, cinematic, manipulative. I guess love has terms and conditions, David said, even in blood. I stopped the video halfway through. I didn't need to hear the rest. I could imagine it. The captions, the emotional soundtrack, the call to empathy. 1 million viewers by noon, twice that by nightfall. The phone rang. Evelyn Theron. Edward, she said. No greeting, no delay. You've seen it. I have. It's trending. Of course it is. I've already issued a statement clarifying that the property is under legal protection, but the damage is spreading faster than we can manage. He's framing it as emotional abuse, cutting off access, inheritance, manipulation. You know the language. I do, I said quietly. He's playing the martyr, and martyrs always get applause. Her tone softened. We can file a digital takedown notice. It won't do much, but it'll show we're not ignoring it. No, I said. Let him speak. The truth will show in time. Edward, she warned. The truth doesn't trend. After the call ended, I turned off the tablet and went to the window. The sea was the same as always, patient, ancient, indifferent. But the world above it was shifting. By midday, cars began to appear again at the turn of the hill. Not convoys this time. Individuals, curious people, locals, tourists, maybe fans. They stopped near the gate, took photos, pointed, whispered. Some held phones up like relics. The guards stayed at their posts, silent and still. The Tanaka family kept to themselves. I saw the boy on the patio, reading, the girl watering the lavender with a small metal can. Their calm was a mercy. At 2:14 p.m., Leo arrived. No warning, no call ahead. He strode into the kitchen, jaw set, phone in hand. "You're on half a dozen news blogs," he said. "A trending hashtag. Edward, hashtag, locked. Do you have any idea what that means? It means he's winning the sympathy war. It means your daughter is being dragged through this circus," Leo snapped. Then he caught himself and lowered his voice. "Sorry, but you can't ignore this anymore." "I'm not ignoring it," I said. "I'm containing it." He exhaled sharply. "Evelyn's drawing up a preliminary injunction. We'll send it through official channels if he monetizes any of this content. But if you want to stop the noise, you'll have to make a statement. I won't make a spectacle of my grief. This isn't about grief. It's about control of the narrative." I looked out the window again. Beyond the glass, the sky was turning the color of pewter. The wind had picked up, scattering petals from the lavender garden like pale ashes. "Leo," I said quietly, "you've known me a long time. When have I ever cared about the narrative?" He gave a faint, tired smile. "That's what makes you dangerous." He left soon after, his car's taillights cutting through the mist. I stayed at the window long after he was gone. At 3:07 p.m., a message came from an unknown number. It was a photo of the gate, taken from the road. Underneath, a caption, "See you soon, old man." No name, no sender ID, but I didn't need one. I went downstairs to the vault, opened the steel door with the brass key, and checked the contents. Documents, photographs, Carol's letters, all untouched. I locked it again, the metal click echoing through the quiet house. The Tanokas remained upstairs, unaware, or perhaps aware, but respectful enough to pretend otherwise. That evening, the fog returned, heavy, relentless. I turned off every external light except for the ones by the gate. Through the monitors, the world looked like static, white noise and ghostly outlines. At 9:45 p.m., the sensors triggered movement at the south fence. 3 figures, flashlights, 1 camera. I activated the loudspeaker. My voice filled the night. "This is private property. You are trespassing. Leave immediately." The lights froze, then turned, then vanished into the fog. The guards swept the perimeter but found nothing. Only tire tracks near the turn, leading back toward the highway. I returned to the study. On the desk, the phone vibrated again. Another message, same number. "He can build walls. You can lock doors, but he can't lock the past." I stared at the words until the screen dimmed. Then I turned off the phone and let the house go dark. Some battles are not fought with weapons or laws. Some are fought with silence and the courage to hold it longer than the other man can stand. And that was what I intended to do. The next morning came cold and clear, the kind of light that exposes everything. The sea below was restless again, throwing up white foam against the black rocks. I had barely slept. Every sound in the house, every creak of the floor, every shift of the wind had felt like the echo of something unfinished. By 8, the gate camera showed movement, not the press, not curious tourists. A single black SUV pulling slowly up the drive. It stopped 10 yards from the house. The door opened. David Trump stepped out alone. No crew this time, no entourage, just him. He wore dark jeans, a leather jacket, and the look of someone rehearsing an argument. His hair was less perfect today. His eyes had the burn of someone who hadn't slept either. I watched from the study window as he walked toward the steps. He didn't look up, didn't wave, didn't hesitate. When he reached the door, he didn't ring the bell. He just knocked once, sharp and heavy. I opened it before the second knock. "Edward," he said. "David." We stood facing each other. The wind moved between us like a third presence. "You could have called," I said. "You could have answered," he replied. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then I stepped back and motioned him inside. He entered, slow eyes, scanning the walls, the furniture, the photographs that weren't there anymore. "It's smaller than I remember," he said. "That's because last time you were here, you filled it with noise." He gave a small, humorless laugh. "You never liked me. I didn't need to. I only needed to trust that you loved Olivia." "I do," he said, too quickly. "Everything I do, the videos, the business, it's for us, for her, for our future." "Then why turn our pain into performance?" I asked. He looked away. "You don't understand the world we live in now. People relate to honesty, to struggle. It's not exploitation, it's connection. Connection built on sympathy," I said. "That's not honesty, David. That's marketing." He took a step closer. "You'd think I wanted any of this. You think I wanted millions of people to know about this fight. You locked me out. You embarrassed me. I protected what Carol built. Carol is gone, he snapped. You're clinging to ghosts. The air went still after that. Even the sea seemed to pause. I walked past him, to the window overlooking the garden. The lavender bent under the morning wind, resilient but fragile. She asked me to protect this place. I said quietly. She wanted it to stay as it was, pure, untouched. She also wanted Olivia to be happy. David said, and right now, she isn't. You think this house keeps her safe. It's keeping her away. I turned to face him. You've taken everything sacred and turned it into spectacle. You want me to open these doors so you can record another episode, so the world can watch you make amends under a filter and a sponsorship deal. His expression hardened. You think everything I do is fake. Not everything, I said. Just the parts you sell. He exhaled, long and slow. You talk about promises. You think you're the only one who made one. I promised her I'd take care of Olivia too. Maybe I don't do it your way, but I'm still trying. And yet you've made her choose between us. Maybe you already did, he said softly. That stopped me, because it was true, or at least, not entirely false. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The clock on the wall ticked loud enough to fill the silence. Then the phone on the table buzzed. I ignored it. So did he. He looked around again, eyes falling on the piano in the corner. That was hers, wasn't it? It was. He walked over, ran a hand along the cover. I used to hear her play from the garden. Olivia told me she used to fall asleep listening to it. Yes. He lifted the corner of the cover, just enough to see the keys beneath. Do you ever play? No. Why not? Because some sounds shouldn't be repeated. He let the fabric fall back into place. You're afraid of the past, Edward. That's why you're losing the present. He turned to leave. I didn't stop him. At the door, he paused. You can't hold everything behind walls forever. Sooner or later, something will give. Maybe Olivia. Maybe you. Then he walked out. Through the window, I watched him cross the path to his car. He didn't look back. The SUV started, reversed, and disappeared down the hill. When the sound of the engine faded, the quiet that followed wasn't peace. It was something heavier, the kind of silence that settles after a truth has been spoken, even if you refuse to accept it. I stayed by the piano for a long time. Finally, I lifted the cover. My hands hovered above the keys. They felt foreign, like artifacts from another life. I pressed one note, soft, faint, a single sound that filled the room and vanished into the air. For the first time in years, the house answered back, not with words, but with resonance. The vibrations seemed to travel through the floors, through the walls, through the memory of every promise I had made. Maybe David was right. Maybe walls could not hold everything, but I had built my life on foundations that refused to yield. And this house, this sanctuary, would hold until I decided otherwise. Outside, the wind rose again, carrying the salt of the sea against the glass. The ocean roared like something alive. And I, for the first time since Carol's death, sat at her piano and let the music return. The next 2 days passed in a strange stillness. The fog stayed low over the ocean, the kind that turns sound into distance. The house felt caught between two worlds, too quiet to be alive, too full of memory to be empty. The Tanaka family went about their days in silence and grace. Mr. Tanaka tended the garden in the mornings. His wife cooked, leaving faint traces of ginger and rice in the air. The children read by the windows, whispering softly to each other in Japanese. They did not ask questions. They did not pry. It was as if they understood that some houses breathed differently. I spent those hours in the study, reviewing the trust documents Evelyn had sent for revision. Each clause felt heavier now. The law protects property, but not peace. By the third morning, the wind changed. The fog lifted. For the first time in weeks, the house was flooded with light. I went outside, walking slowly across the flagstone path that led toward the cliffs. The sea below was a mirror, hard, gleaming, endless. I thought of Carol. I thought of the day we first found this land. Before there was a foundation, before there was anything but wind and horizon. She had stood right here, hair pulled back by the salt air, eyes shining. She had said, "This is where we'll build something that lasts longer than we do." And I had believed her. I returned inside, climbed the stairs, and went to the small drawer beside the bed. Inside it was a sealed envelope I had not touched in 3 years. Her handwriting on the front was still perfect. "Edward, when you forget why we built it." My hands hesitated before opening it. The paper had yellowed slightly, but her scent, faint lavender and ink, still lingered. Her letter was short. Carol never wasted words. You are a builder. You think walls make safety, but sometimes walls only make distance. When I am gone, you will keep building. That's who you are. But remember this, what we built together was not meant to keep people out. It was meant to bring love in. Do not mistake silence for strength. Open the windows once in a while. Let the world breathe through what we made. I folded the letter back into its envelope and sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. Outside, the wind had changed direction. It came from the west now, carrying warmth instead of salt. That afternoon, Olivia called. Her voice was small, cautious. Dad, I'm here. I saw the video. He took it down or no? I told him to. I said, he crossed a line. I think he finally understood. There was a long pause, the kind that isn't awkward, just delicate. I'm sorry, she said, for not calling sooner. I'm sorry for making it hard to call, I replied. Another silence. Then, Mom would have wanted us to stop fighting. She would have, I said. Can I come home? She asked. For a second, I couldn't speak. I looked out the window, at the sea turning gold in the afternoon light. This house is always yours, I said finally. It always was. When the call ended, I went to the study. I unlocked the vault again and placed Carol's letter inside. Then I closed it gently and left the key on top. That evening, as the sun went down, I opened every window in the house. The sea air moved through the rooms like a spirit set free. The curtains lifted, the wood floors creaked softly, and the faint scent of lavender drifted out into the wind. The Tanaka children were in the garden. The boy looked up and smiled. It smells nice, he said. Yes, I answered. It does. Later, when night fell, I sat at the piano again. The same melody from years ago came back to me, hesitant at first, then steady. The notes filled the room, climbed the stairs, and escaped through the open windows into the night. For the first time since Carol's passing, I did not feel alone. The house no longer felt like a fortress. It felt alive again. Outside, the sea caught the moonlight and threw it back in fragments of silver. The waves moved with slow rhythm, like breath, in the reflection on the glass. I saw myself older, smaller, but no longer haunted. Behind me, the lavender swayed in the night breeze, and for a moment, I could almost see her there, not as a ghost, but as light. The letter, the music, the house, all of it breathing together. The promise had held, not because I kept it, but because it had finally learned to keep me.